How's everyone, Grant here? Welcome back to another camera comparison video. This time I've got the Google Pixel 5 up against the LG V60 ThinQ. So like I always do, I'll show you a bunch of photos and videos in both good and low light conditions to help you decide which of these phone cameras might be best for you. So we got the best of Google and the best of LG of 2020. So take a look at all the photos and videos and I'll come back at the end and I'll let you know how I thought each of these phones performed. Hey everyone, so here's a video test from the park with the Google Pixel 5 and the LG V60. We're starting out with the wide angle lens on both, and what's nice is that once you start recording, you can switch between the lenses. So there's the main wide on the LG and the main wide there on the Pixel. The transition was a little bit smoother on the Pixel. There's a bit of a flash on the LG if you saw that. But I'll pan a little bit over here so you can kind of see the fall colors in the trees there, how that contrasts with the sky and some of the greenery. But if we fully pan over here to the right to the cell tower, we'll do a bit of a zoom test here. So we go 2 times on the Pixel and 2 times there on the V60. And then a max 5 times zoom on the Pixel. And I'll pinch to zoom to 5 times here on the V60. And we'll continue on to its max zoom of 10 times digital there, which looks pretty sharp and steady here, at least in the viewfinder. So we'll back that out on both. And we'll do an autofocus test here with the Pixel 5 first. So very snappy autofocus and refocus there from the Pixel 5. One last time here. And with the V60. There you go. Refocus. Pretty quick focus speeds here and a little bit more of a blurry background or shallow depth of field there, maybe from the LG. But one last time, so there we go. And let's do a bit of a stabilization test here as I walk down the stairs. I would expect stabilization to be good here on most phones, especially flagship phones like these and 1080p these days. And then I'll do one last pan around the park here and see how it handles that afternoon sun. And here we go with the same test, this time at 4K 30 frames per second. Again, starting out with the ultra wide angle lens on both. I can switch into the main lens here on the Pixel 5 and then here on the V60 again. A little bit smoother transition on the Pixel 5, still got that flash on that V60. And we'll pan over to the right a little bit, slow pan. And we'll do a little bit of zoom test here in 4K. So first with the Pixel 5, 2 times there, 2 times with the LG, and a smooth 5 times there on the Pixel, and I'll try to pinch to zoom in 5 times there on the LG, and we'll transition all the way into max zoom, still at 10 times here, which looks a little bit more grainy actually in 4K through the viewfinder than it did at 1080p on the V60. So we'll back out on that. And again, autofocus test here in 4K. Still nice and snappy here on the Pixel 5. One last time. And then we'll go with the V60. Again, still pretty snappy here on the V60 as well. And one more time. LG V60. Okay, and we'll walk down the stairs, see what the stabilization looks like here in 4K. But let me know what you think about the video and audio quality here between the Pixel 5 and the V60 as we do one last pan around the park here. Hey everyone, so here's a quick stabilization test. The Pixel 5 has active stabilization, which is a little bit more stable than its normal mode without it. And the V60 has a Steadicam stabilization mode here, both restricted to 1080p resolution. So I'm just walking, and I'll start running so you can kind of see how the stabilization works on a little bit more stress. So let's take a look. So that's just a quick stabilization between the Pixel 5's active stabilization and the Steadicam on the V60 there. Hey everyone, so here's a quick front-facing video from the Pixel 5 and the LG V60. This is 1080p 30 frames per second on both for now. And for some reason, I'm looking at the viewfinder and my face looks a lot more red in the Pixel than it does in the LG. And I know my face isn't looking that red right now, so I'm not really sure what's going on with the colors there. Could just be the time of day, there's a lot of shade. And the white balance and the color temperature is a little bit off there, but just something to note there. I'll pan around here so you can kind of see how it looks into the changing light, because the sun is back there, as you can kind of see that. You can see some of the fall leaves there. And I'll fully pan back around and we'll do a bit of a stabilization test. I'll just walk. So hopefully this gives you some kind of an idea of what the Pixel 5 and the V60 front-facing cameras look like for video here. Hey everyone, so here's one more clip from the front-facing camera. This time I've got the V60 at 4K 30 frames per second, and the Pixel 5 is still at its max 1080p 30 frames per second there. And so I'll do the same test. I'll pan around so you can kind of see what the 4K looks like and compare that back to what you just saw from the 1080p on the LG. And we'll pan all the way around here and see what the stabilization looks like here from the LG in 4K up against the Pixel 5's 1080p stabilization.
I got that heat, let's go.
Hey everyone, so here we go with a bit of a low light test. As you can see, the sun just went down, so we're kind of in a bit of transition between golden hour and blue hour. And I'm sorry if my voice is a bit muffled, but I'm wearing a mask. I'm out here in public, and you can see the exposure adjusted here this way for a little bit better. But we'll do some walking to test out the stabilization here on both of these cameras. And so it's not my usual low light test. This is a bit of a sunset test, which is kind of nice, and I'll try to get some darker video for you a little bit later. But there's a bit of a focus here on the plant on the Pixel, and let's try to get some there on the V60. So looking pretty good on both there. So again, just want to get you some quick footage here and a little bit different low light test, again just around sunset instead of some really dark footage that I normally do. Hey everyone, here is a rear facing low light test between the Pixel 5 and LG V60. This time it's at 4K 30 frames per second. And I'll pan up into that bright light so you can kind of see how it handles into a really bright light. And in the viewfinder at least, both seem to be handling that fairly well. Other phones would really flare that light out because it's just really, really bright, so not too bad there. And I can do a little bit of zoom here, so 2 times on the Pixel and 2 times on the V60. And if I zoom in max 5 times on the Pixel, I can pinch to zoom 5 times to match on the V60. That's what that looks like. We'll pan over this way, see how that zoom compares, and I'll pan all the way in, or zoom all the way in to max 10 times digital there on the V60. And we'll zoom back out on both, and I'll pan around this way, and I'll start walking to test the stabilization. And also, we'll be walking over to a much darker area so you can see how it handles light transition from that fairly well-lit area over to this much darker area here. And as always, check out for any micro jitters that you might see that becomes prevalent in lower light video situations and when you're moving around like this. And as you can see, it's much darker in this area here. I'll pan up so you can see the night sky, which is pretty dark right now, and pan this way to where there's a little bit more light from the building. See how each of the phones handle that. So again, just wanted to give you a 4K sample and a little bit darker scene here. Hey everyone, here's a low light video test from the front facing cameras of the Pixel 5 and the LG V60. Now this is being shot at 1080p 30 frames per second on each phone. That's the max resolution and frame rate from the Pixel 5. The V60 can go up to 4K, and I'll change that in a bit so you can see that comparison here. But apples to apples, this is what it looks like. And you can see there the bright lights in the background, how the front facing cameras handle that, if you see any lens flaring or not. And I'll go ahead and start walking so we can test stabilization from each of these cameras here. And I'll be walking over into a little bit darker area so you can kind of see how it handles that lighting transition. So you can see how with some pretty decent light, what it looks like in a little bit darker conditions as I move over here. And also, how does my voice sound compared to the background noise that this fountain here. You can test the audio on each of these as well. As you can see here, this is a bit darker area. You can see how these phones are doing there. And as I turn around this way, you can see it transition back into that bright lights behind me. How it's handling that. And we'll finish this out here but in some of the darker light again, so you get a good feel for how these cameras perform in some low light here. Hey everyone, so here we go again with the same test. This time I've got the LG V60 at 4K 30 frames per second, and the Pixel 5 is still at its 1080p 30 frames per second max resolution. Now the V60 can shoot at 4K 60 frames, but I wouldn't really recommend that in low light. 60 frames per second gets darker than even what you're seeing here. And also note the narrower field of view on the V60 front camera than the Pixel 5 for whatever reason. But again, glimpse at the lighting there, and we'll do some walking. And we'll also see beyond the stabilization how it starts to look in some of this darker light like we did in the 1080p footage. And so let me know if you see any difference in the quality of the LG V60's 4K footage from its previous 1080p footage and how that's comparing here to the Pixel 5. So again, we're in that little bit darker area here. Now 4K may look a little bit darker, but at least in the viewfinder, the V60 is looking fairly good here. Brighter, which depends on your taste if you like that or not. But again, some of those bright lights behind me, what that does to the picture quality here, and one last pan around back this way. So again, 4K versus the 1080p on the Pixel 5. Let me know what you think. Hey everyone, so now that you've seen all the photos and videos for yourself, let me know in the comments which phone you thought did better and why. Now, as for my own thoughts, I still think the Pixel did better overall. I'm just kind of partial to the Pixel. Overall, it's just easier to use. I get better results more consistently with it, and I just like the look of the photos and even the video better overall. However, I did think the V60 did very well and held its own, and actually the photo quality actually looks better to me now than it did when I originally did a comparison up against the V50. So I'll link that video somewhere if you're interested in checking that out. But to me, the photo quality has improved over the last few updates, and that's a really good thing. I also think the ultra wide angle camera on the V60 actually looks a little bit better. It has a wider field of view and the photos look really good. The only places where I thought the V60 didn't do so well was the 4K video recording from the rear for some reason. Outdoors, the colors get really blown out and don't look very good, and that's been a problem on LG phones before, so I'm not really sure why that is, but the color reproduction in 4K doesn't quite look right to me. And also, the front-facing camera still isn't very good on the V60. So LG front-facing cameras typically haven't been too good, but the V60 camera actually looks worse to me than the V50. So hopefully LG can step up its front-facing camera game in 2021. So those are just my quick thoughts on how each of these phones performed. Again, let me know in the comments which one you thought did better and why, and we'll continue a conversation down there. And as always, thanks for watching.